Happy Palm Sunday, everyone. I am Attorney Larry Fields, and I am ecstatic to be joined this morning by the Mike Jones, Kwame, Jerry L.T. Christmas, and the one and only Dr. Charles Alexander. And we are, what a difference a week makes. Last week, this time, Attorney Christmas was getting ready for what was sure to be a contentious trial that we will allow him to explain. And there are a few things that we want to interweave into that. But with no further ado, Kwame, if you could give us some information about the trial and how it went and so forth. So individuals will know that the level set are not just individuals that spot issues, but we provide solutions, and we challenge you all to do the same. But go
I
take
will,
it away.
Larry. And if I could just take a moment to do one thing that I forgot I wanted to mention to you is that I just want to acknowledge the passing of Minister Akbar Muhammad, who
Uh,
was the international representative for the Nation of Islam. And the main reason that I want to do that is because Minister Akbar did a lot of work here out of St. Louis, and he did a lot of work with us at Central Baptist Church with our Rites of Passage program. Because of Minister Akbar, we were able to take 5 trips and take children from St. Louis on 5 different occasions to Africa. And he was a major advocate for Pan Africanism, for activism, for education, and just an all around great person. He was just really a gift from God. And I failed to acknowledge his passing, last week and his ceremony. And I just wanted to get that out there real quickly.
we both did, and
Hmm.
the breadth and the influence of the Nation of Islam can't be underestimated. This is something I keep in my book. In my book.
Hmm.
Um,
How
I,
they
Yeah, I
how
mean,
they used to
how
live.
to eat to live. I mean,
Hmm.
that's just one of the many things that we do. So we want to, if you pour libations for him. And he was a prolific scholar as well,
Yeah, yes,
just a
prolific.
prolific
Just
scholar.
read it and talked about everything, and just always willing to help and be present for anything that was happening to move the black population forward, and especially here in St. Louis, where it was desperately needed. But to talk about the case, 10 years ago, a mother called me because her son was going to the elementary school on a Sunday morning, 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning, to trade video games with another guy, another friend of his. He was meeting him at the elementary school so they could trade their video games. The police were in the process of chasing what they believed to be a stolen Acura, where they had lost contact with the car in North St. Louis, near where he was at. At some point, they saw individuals jump out of that Acura being black males, but no real identification, but somewhere in that area. They kept patrolling that area, these two officers, Murphy and Strifus. And they came upon the school grounds where other kids were playing on that Sunday morning and people kind of hanging out because that's what they did on those school grounds on the weekend. When the police jumped out, everybody began to run. They just ran because the police jumped out. Everybody ran, including 14-year-old Tyron Edwards. As Tyrone Edwards started to run and head to a vacant field, heading back to his house, um, the police began to chase him, thinking that he was maybe a suspect or driving this stolen car. How they could think that, I don't know. He was a very small 14-year-old, very thin 14-year-old guy. Then they alleged that at some point, this 14-year-old turned around, pointed a weapon at them, and began to shoot at them. They fired a total of 15 shots between the two of them in his direction, ultimately shooting him twice in the back and him collapsing. When his mother found out that he had been shot, she came to the scene. Scene was roped off, but they would not let her down there. She could see paramedics working on him, but she could not get down to the scene. Then they took him away in an ambulance. She thought he was deceased, but they came up to her and said that he was being transferred to Children's Hospital. She arrived at Children's Hospital and they told her she could not see him. That's how I got involved. She called me hysterical saying that her child had been shot and she couldn't see him. We got a court order that allowed us to go and see him the next day, where they had him handcuffed to the bed, uh, still dealing with his wounds. From there, they charged him with this shooting at the police and took him straight from Children's Hospital to juvenile detention, where they held him in juvenile detention with these gunshot wounds for 3 months before those charges were eventually dropped. The officers that allegedly shot him refused to cooperate with the prosecution. That was the first red flag. They take the fifth, didn't want to say anything in reference to that. Those charges were dropped. And so this case has been going on for the last decade and finally went to trial this past week, where we were able to get a jury to hold them accountable for the shooting of Tyron Edwards and the things that happened to him as a result of that shooting, Dr. Alexander, because that shooting changed his whole life. After that shooting, he was no longer allowed to go to St. Louis public schools. He had to go to alternative schools. He had never been confined before in his life. He spent 3 months in confinement as a result of that shooting, not to mention the trauma that he endured as a 14-year-old being shot by the police. He was terrified of the police. His life began to spiral downward as a result of that. He ended up getting involved in some negative activity, ended up having to do one stint in federal prison for distribution, all as a result of this. But he still was able to come back and keep himself together and maintain himself through this whole process up until this trial. And we had a jury of 12 individuals, 8 whites, 4 blacks, a black foreman who came back with a verdict against the city for $7 million, which was the initial verdict against the city. And once we were able to recover that, you could then ask for punitive damages. The jury then went back and did punitive damages for $15 million each on each officer for a total of $37 million. So it was 10 years and a long time coming, and nobody ever thought that we would ever get to this point. But we were able to get to this point and cross the threshold and get a positive return for this client. And I'm happy that we were able to be a part of that and make this happen for him.
That's God's work. I'm
It
opening
is.
it up immediately for you two. Go right ahead.
You got anything, Mike Jones?
No, all I can say is well done. And my initial reaction, uh, uh,
Oh, and let me say this one thing too.
yeah,
This is Tyron lived, but these same two officers killed another 15-year-old 6 months after that situation. There's no telling how many bodies they actually have on them. Because this is that time period. Remember, this is 2016. This
right.
is right after Michael Brown. And this is when we just had this rash of police shootings where they were just randomly, shooting and killing young black men in North St. Louis.
Couple things. First of all, Congratulations, Gerald. Well done. And Charles, I had two immediate thoughts. Uh, we represent the male view, the male section of the Divine Nine, and our embodiment here is one of each here. And my ship was see it through. Okay, that from the poem, and that's what I thought about initially. You know, the fact that you saw this through is over 10 years is a profound tribute to you, your character, and your perseverance. And the second thing is that the verdict is big enough that it is punitive enough that it can change behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he'll never get that life back, and I don't think you can put a dollar figure on those kinds of existential things. But the punishment fits the crime.
Mm-hmm.
From from an environmental standpoint. Okay, the worthless cops are the worthless cops, and they've always would have been worthless. But a public entity, a city, a government needs to be punished at this level for hiring and then tolerating that kind of behavior on the people that they put in charge of these uh, fundamental kinds of public services that we all have to trust because we don't have any choice. So that's the other thing. And my compliments to the jury for making a broke ass city pay.
Dr. Alexander.
I do want to commend Attorney Christmas for the work and the service and the stick to itness. um, he presents as he typically does when we end up in these kind of conversations. He presents the opportunity for me to say, this is why I be disagreeing. Brother, you are it. You keep saying what we ain't got in St. Louis, and you keep doing stuff like this. Now, the bad is that you got to do stuff like this. The good is that you can do it. And so you know, and even in in opening the show and in your reference to the rites of passage program, like this is literally, this is boots on the ground, and this is what the work looks like. Um, this is what superheroes look like, and you know, uh, unfortunately, um, and I imagine this will be a part of how our conversation goes for the rest of the day. Um, the punishment is not enough because white supremacy never ceases, and so uh, unfortunately, you're gonna have another case, and now this settlement is going to be precedent, so you're going to have another case, and unfortunately another family is going to be injured as a result of racist police, and um, and you're going to go in and you're going to win that case, and people are going to get more money. And I say this because this is what it looks like in Chicago. The Chicago gives money, month after month, year after year for all of this police wrongdoing, and there's never an amount that makes it stop. Uh, so believe between um, police violence and the wrongful deaths and um, the like I guess it amounts to false imprisonment when they are arresting arresting folks on trumped up charges. Um, you know, Chicago is like one of the easily in the top three. It may still be I'm not sure if it's still number one, but it's no less than number three in terms of exonerations because they got folks locked up on just forced confessions, the whole nine. And
Mm-hmm.
so the stuff doesn't end, and it doesn't end in Chicago, and unfortunately it's not going to end in St. Louis. And somewhere there's like, just imagine, so somewhere last night or when was the verdict? Friday or
Friday.
Friday. So somewhere Friday, white supremacists started a GoFundMe for those police officers.
Probably.
Right. And so like, but they probably started it when the case opened, 10 years ago. Right. And so because this is what it looks like for the white supremacists. And so they don't see this as, of course, they don't see this as justice. They've justified in their mind, well, the fact that they shot the young man and that they killed the young man that you also referenced, you know, the way they figure it, that's a benefit to the community.
And
Right.
the other problem, Dr. Alexander, is the way that they can just demonize children in our community.
Yes.
Because just the
Yes.
whole thought process, because we all have been 14-year-old black males. Now, can you really imagine being 14 and having that kind of courage that you're going to stop, turn around, pull out a gun, and actually shoot at the police? And then on top of that, they, that they, or I didn't add this, that they allegedly found a weapon in the grass near there, and a shell conveniently in his back pocket. So he would have had to shoot that weapon. Then, because the cartridge was full and no bullet was in the chamber ready to fire again, he would have had to shoot that weapon, and if it had jammed, clear the casing out of there, and then find it, then put it in his back pocket and continue to run. Just, the level of sophistication and threat that they put on a 14-year-old was just unbelievable, in confronting the police in that situation. You'd have to be someone that had extensive knowledge of, how to operate a weapon, how to clear it out the chamber, and do all of those things in order to pull off what they said happened. It just seemed totally unbelievable to me.
Chicago has paid over $700 million since 2019 for police misconduct, right? And it paid 231 million in 2025 alone. And so, and that's kind of the thing with all of this. Like, if we go back to how a movement got hijacked, right? Colin Kaepernick took a knee after having put up $1 million to provide de-escalation training and probably some sensitivity, some kind of racial sensitivity training to, I believe, the San Francisco Police Department, which was matched by uh, the owner of the San Francisco 49ers, and which was in response to police brutality in the city of San Francisco. And somehow that became, and so as opposed to a battle about police brutality, which is what Colin Kaepernick was fighting against, that became a fight about whether or not he gets to play football.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So to that point or that reference, I think we make a mistake when we talk about police misconduct, because the implicit assumption in that statement is that somehow they're doing something that they were not supposed to do. And the only way you can draw that conclusion is you misunderstand the purpose of local policing in America if you're black, for black people. That fundamentally local police grew out of the slave catchers
Ace
and all of
patrols.
that. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and local police have always, now they might be serving and protecting white folks, but they've always been about behavior control for black folks. Literally, there has never been a day in America where local policing was about serving and protecting black people. Our biggest problem for us is we got a different kind of cognitive distance than white folks, but in cognitive distance for us might be the wrong term, so Charles, correct me. But we keep confusing the American myth or creation story and making giving that a priority as opposed to the black memory. Okay, if you took the collective memory of black folks, yeah, that's Larry. That's something I've developed over the last 6 weeks. Okay, it's the myth
Yes,
versus
sir.
it's the white myth versus the black memory. And when you move into the space of the black memory, you understand that the white myth is just that, a myth. Okay, it's never existed. It don't exist now. It will probably never exist inside of this current infrastructure. And to get to anything that looks like universal justice where all men are created and women are created equal and endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights, and having a government who draws its legitimate powers from the consent of the governed to help implement and secure those rights is never going to happen in this America. That if I had to say what my theory would is not, it was not a theory because it's not provable, but that Donald Trump, from we ought to consider Trump as the beginning of the end of the collapse of the American order that has been in existence for the last 250 years. That inside of that order, we're never going to get anything that resembles justice. So we don't have an interest in protecting, and I want to slap somebody black every time I hear him say that on television. Protecting our democracy. We never had one, and the democracy we've been in, their democracy, is the one that constitutionally legitimized slavery, the Congress and the courts upheld Jim Crow. So fundamentally, literally everything that has happened to us in this country from the time it was founded, and it has been about how to legally and culturally suppress the descendants of the Africans that were brought to this continent in North America, 400,000 of them more or less, uh, during the transatlantic slave trade. And the fact to read it's nearly Fuller's comment. When you don't understand white supremacy and racism, everything else will confuse. Everything you do understand will confuse you. We keep ending up. Gerald Win Friday is not about justice. It's about some retribution that we get to inflict. But we didn't win anything. He got to show up next week and still fight. I mean, literally, this is an existential battle, and we get confused because we think we Americans. We are United States citizens, but America has never defined us as being American. And from my perspective, I have absolutely no interest. I would reject the invitation if I was now invited. Okay, so because it will come at the expense of my emotional and mental health.
And Mike, it's
Exactly.
funny.
And
Absolutely.
I
And
think the
that and
Mike,
biggest
that's one
Mike,
of the
problem
Mike,
though,
Mike,
things.
Mike, it's funny you
go ahead.
said that because no, Joe, I'm gonna come right back to you. I just want to
Mhm.
note that the Supreme Court is going to be dealing this week with this notion of who's an American and who's not, as they have taken a case that deals directly with citizenship. And so,
Birthright citizenship.
yes, that's correct. And so we're supposed to get a verdict on that this week. But Gerald, go right ahead because I mean everything that has been presented here is incredibly significant and cogent.
Just
I
before
was just
Gerald,
thinking what Mike is saying is just so on point that the problem though is that our children are not being taught that, and the memory is so short on that whole concept right now. And it's so different now than it was when we were growing up as children. And what I can't quite figure out is how do we reverse that? How do we start educating our children on this? How do we get back to that? Because we just don't have the people in our population that we had before that kept us abreast of these type of things and these issues.
So
but you're doing it.
after your account, go ahead, Doc. Go
You're
ahead.
doing it. You referenced it earlier. I mean, you took these kids. You've taken 5 trips to the continent. Your work. And your church's work, and in concert with the nation. And Brother Akbar. I mean, this is what it takes. This is what it takes. Now, I am 100% certain that we don't recognize that period of time from, let's say, 1965 to so that 20-year stretch from 1965 to 1985 probably being what amounts to uh, a golden age for the education of Black children. That was probably a high point. This isn't our children now aren't being this thing. Our education has always been under assault, and so if it was good, then it must have just been good in that period of time which you reference, which is probably the point of time that you were in school. But otherwise, it's just been terrible. That's why we had a Black Arts movement. That's why we had uh, a Black Studies movement. That's why Carter G. Woodson wrote his book and continued to get it out through all means possible, and to to recognize, to initiate uh Negro History Week, which in '76 then became Black History Month. And so this is the nature of things. And so it we fight the fight in the way that you're fighting the fight. And so, there's a part of your time when you're not in court that you are participating in a rites of passage program at your church. There's a part of your time when you are not in court where you and your church are sponsoring and producing a Kwanzaa festival. This is the battle. Every Sunday, this is our battlefield. And so
Charles,
this is the work.
Charles, excuse me, Gerald, let me hop in here. Here, I'm gonna kind of not disagree, but reframe your opening. I would suggest that for Black people, the golden era of our education was everything before Brown. Okay, everything before Brown. As a matter of fact, the what we could say for Black children being educated in Jim Crow is what Dickens wrote in Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times and it was the worst of times. Yeah, we didn't have the resources. We didn't have any of the advanced technology or whatever the best educational ecosystem was. But what we had was effective control of what was going on with Black children, with Black adults. So literally, all Black children were being educated by Black adults who really didn't have but one mission, and that is to get them ready to be Black men and women in America. And that's literally what you're. So you would have Black teachers regularly and routinely tell you that the reason you have to work harder and do better because that's what it's going to take for you to get half of what you're entitled to. Now, those were conversations that were organic to so, and that when you don't give your best effort or don't perform up to the maximum of your ability, you're not failing yourself, you're failing us. You're failing Black people. So that got imbued, that got to be part of what shaped you. It'd be like everybody was playing for a great coach, okay? And you might not become a great basketball player, but you fundamentally now know how you're supposed to play the game and you understand everything that needs to be done, whether you can actually get it done or not. But when you're looking at the game, you see things that you would not have seen. A Black teacher cannot perform that function in an integrated school. Okay, a Black teacher can only do that inside of an all Black environment where everybody goes home to an all Black environment. And what the teacher said was the norm. That is that you integrate rather the educational ecosystem, and we didn't. They don't come into our space. We got sent to their space. And even if you had Black teachers, the mission and the psychology of being a Black teacher in that space is totally different. Because if you said any of the things that I heard Black adults and teachers say when I was going from first grade through high school, you'd get fired. You couldn't say that in that classroom. So we compromise our children's development because you only get chance now. You'll be an adult the rest of your life. You'll be a grown ass man the rest of your life. You ain't gonna be a child but one time. You're gonna be a boy one time. You're gonna be that adolescent from 12 to 18 who's being shaped and formed to be the person they're gonna be for the rest of their life one time. That's the last and anything I don't give you then, you will probably never get later. Now you may pick it up and you may learn it at some kind of cognitive level, but it'll never be imprinted on you. It'll never be your reflex position. You'll never understand. Uh, you'll always be looking, but you'll never be seeing. And because you never see, you never understand. And if you don't understand, you can't change behavior. And all of that goes in on the front end. You can't put that in the back end. So I would suggest that what we call what Charles described as the golden time was really the beginning of the end of producing black children who would turn into functioning, emotionally, mentally healthy black adults that could figure out how to navigate an America that was not intended for them, as Du Bois said. Now that's my takeaway. Having 15 more years on you guys.
I only use that point of reference because of the context of Gerald's statement. But fundamentally, again, I mean, I think even when we look at it, I mean, St. Louis is unique. St. Louis County is unique. You had Douglas and Webster Groves, and you had Sumner in the city. And so there's an amount of education and educated people that existed in St. Louis that a lot of places probably didn't have. You know, they did, and then you add, uh, a teaching hospital in Homer G. Phillips. So St. Louis education for Black folks before Brown was probably unique. Um, I think we overstate. In fact, I know we overstate what education looked like before Brown. If it looked any different, we wouldn't have had Brown. And so, but I do think St. Louis is unique in that regard. But I use that period of time to capture the period of time that, you know, Gerald was probably in school. Because when we say that our kids are being, aren't getting da 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 da, that suggests that we were getting it before and we weren't. And I mean, I think that was hit or miss. It depends on, kind of where you were, because that has been the nature of this thing. Um, and so, and the fight is to do, as I said, just is that same piece is it's the stuff that we keep saying the other folks are doing. Like we be like, the Chinese folks, they got Saturday school. Well, they got have a Saturday school. Just do that, or you already have Sunday school, so augment your Sunday school with Black history. You all do Kwanzaa in your church. You all do, like you say, you got rites of passage. All of these things are necessary to supplement this piece.
But the other
Um,
side of that, let me just say this quickly, Dr. Alexander. In this time and age, I think one reason what Mike could say that is because he came in that time period and he knew exactly what they were teaching you was for survival. We don't teach our kids that way. And then even in the church right now, I have to fight with them about the rites of passage
but we've
program because
always
they say
had to fight.
the church says it's not spiritual enough. They say I'm too black.
But that ain't new,
That's
Gerald.
the pushback I'm getting from, we're in a battle right now with the church about the church's youth program and our rites of passage program. They one and the same to me, but you got church people saying we ain't spiritual enough. And I'm not. I'm not a biblical scholar. I'm not. I don't claim to be. But I don't. in rites of passage, we don't tell kids not to believe in God or the church or any of the religious part of it. But their whole argument all the time is that rites of passage is not spiritual enough.
We
That's
really
because
need
rites
to
of passage is just attached to Africa, and Black folks don't like things African.
come
That
on,
is
Doc.
not new.
Come
This is
on, Doc.
the nature of our existence. This is what it looks like to be. This goes all back to our second class status, and we are the descendants of enslaved people. That's what this whole thing is about. But it's not new. This is what it is. This is what it is. And this is why you going to keep having cases. And this is why the settlements are going to keep getting bigger. And like, to Mike's point about the police. This is per the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. The St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department, founded in 1808 as a four-man militia, is the oldest in the region and originated from early night watch systems and in part slave patrols in Missouri. This is what they say about themselves. They know. This is who they are. That's what this thing is.
Read
That's what
that
this thing is
again,
always
Doc.
going to be.
Doc. You know. First of all, if you think we're gonna pass by, we're gonna rush by either of those 2 points. I mean, you got another thing coming. Number one, we're dealing with the westernizing of religion. You don't even know. We fail to recognize the genesis of this religion, and we've westernized it. So I need you to go over that point once again. And number two, read the charter information with respect to the genesis of the St. Louis Police Department so everyone can understand what you just read, sir.
I'll start with the last point first. The St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department, founded in 1808 as a four-man militia, is the oldest in the region and originated from early night watch systems and in part slave patrols in Missouri. And so that's who you fighting, Gerald. You are fighting the patty rollers, the slave patrollers. That's who these folks are. That's how they act. This is how they acted. This is what we saw. When dude shot Mike Brown, and there was that other case that came shortly thereafter, and they reward these guys. I'm sure there's a parallel white supremacist universe where guys have Black bodies on the wall that they've killed. I've long thought that in Chicago, that part of the clearance rate issue in Chicago is not because Black folks won't say who did it. It's because these are random police shootings. And in Chicago, if you talk to some of the cats who are still around when the disciples were founded and the vice lords were founded, all that, a lot of those street organizations, in addition to what like before they got into the illicit trades or what have you, many of them were fighting against white folks who were driving through those communities, shooting into houses. I mean, so again, like when we think about this whole piece, like drive-by, like we've taken possession of the drive-by. The drive-by was white folks. Started off with Klan and Night Riders, and then it evolved, and so this is what this thing looks like. And all through this piece, because again of how we got here and why we were here, Black folks have had this ambivalence about who we are and why we are. And so on the one hand, we're having literally this existential fight with white folks because they are bad for our health in every sense of the phrase. And at the same time, we're having this, like the culture war didn't start because, of this, current administration or, whenever Trump came in. There's always been a culture war for Black folks. all the time, ain't never going away. And so the fact that your church doesn't want to do what it's doing, that's par for the course. And so this is the history. This is what has gone on, and this is what's going to continue to go on. But this is the fight. This is how we, you know, this is what we got to do. And so we identify it. And so you say, okay, well, they're not providing that cultural piece. Okay, then we're going to provide the cultural piece. If your church ultimately says no to it, guess what, Gerald? I'm 100% sure you and those like you are going to move this program somewhere else. The program is going to exist with or without the church. Am I right or wrong?
You're right.
And so that is just the piece. But that's been the nature of this thing the whole time.
Gerald, just a quick question from a legal standpoint with respect to this jury. What do you think triggered their emotions to? And I want Mike Jones and Dr. Alexander to chime in where you can, because what do you think triggered the emotions of this jury to come back with such uh, an impactful punitive damage award that they did? And I want to have you give us your analysis of, was this based in reason, or was it based on an emotion, or both, in terms of what that jury's impact was in punities?
I think it was based both on reason, and I think it was based both on emotion, and I think it was also based on the fact that Tyron survived this encounter and that he could be there and be present to testify. For example, the last case that we had like this last year with Mansour Ball Bay died. So he was not present to give testimony. And I think it really made an impact on the jury for him to be there, to actually see him, to actually understand what he's gone through, the trauma that he's gone through as a result of this, and to see it firsthand. And then also to have the expert come in and describe how this actually went down and how hard it would have been for the situation to occur that the police were trying to say happened.
Now, tell me
And
about
that's what
what did the expert testimony include, Doc?
the expert's testimony included how hard it would be. Well, one, he testified to that gun that they found in the yard, how it had no evidence that it had been fired, and that if it had jammed, what all you would have to go through in order to make that happen, to unjam it, and the sophistication you would need to know about a weapon in order to do that. Also, he could talk about all the angles of the shots that the police made and where they were at, as opposed to where our client was at. And so the science of it, and that he could clearly show, because they tried to argue that Tyron was shot in the chest because he made a comment to the EMS that he was shot in the chest. He made that comment that he was shot in the chest because he was having trouble breathing and he was bleeding from the chest. So he's not an expert, nor is he a medical expert. All he knew what was hurting him and where he was bleeding from. But the expert was able to come in and show by looking at his jacket that he was wearing the interest of the gunshot wound, and explain to the jury how the bullet that is entering, and when it's coming through the material, how it makes a larger hole as it's entering, and the film that it leaves on the material as it's entering, and how you tell a interest wound as opposed to an exit wound. And with 100% accuracy, he could tell that this was the entrance wound from the back and not from the front, and clearly state that this child was shot from the back and the exit was from the front, from the chest. Contrary, nothing in the medical records indicated which direction he was shot from. It just says, chest wound. And
Well,
so I think that was real critical in helping the jury understand what happened and what occurred, and to have Tyron there to talk about specifically, what he was doing, the specific games that he was getting ready to trade, what he was about to do, and why he took the actions that he took.
uh, Larry, I want to hop in here because I want to put some extra shit in the game that I want Charles to respond to.
Put it in
Uh,
the game, Mike Jones.
okay. And Gerald said the jury was 8 white, 4 black, but with a black foreman. I am going to use my barbershop psychology degree, and I'm going to suggest that Donald Trump and MAGA America had was a subliminal influence on that jury, because Donald Trump has stripped white folks of their innocence about themselves. They are now looking in the mirror at what they look like, what everybody has always seen, and they ain't got nowhere to hide or run. So they are now confronted with the dark side of who they are. And I'm suggesting that you might still got a majority, but I'm suggesting that you would not, I believe, I'm not going to suggest it, I believe that 8 white folks in St. Louis wouldn't have come up with a 15 or $17 million punitive judgment for each cop if Donald Trump was not doing to them, to their psyche, what he's done to them for the last 12 months. He has stripped them of any uh, faux innocence or anything else. And now you got to confront this evil that's you, okay? Because that's how he got here.
Let me add one thing to that, Mike, too. Just point of clarification I want the audience to know. Unlike in a criminal trial, it does not have to be unanimous
Unanimous,
in a
right,
civil trial.
right,
And so in a criminal trial, everybody has to agree.
right.
In a civil case, only 9 have to agree. So you got to get 9 out of 12 to agree
But
in a
that means
civil trial.
but you needed 5 white folks.
Exactly.
Okay, that's
Exactly.
all. That's all I'm
Yeah.
saying. You wouldn't
You
have
you
it,
needed four
but
black folks.
yeah, but
Come on,
I'm
Doc. Not we can't take anything for granted.
They take them jokers for granted.
okay. I was gonna spot you the 4 black folks. Okay, just to make my white folks argument. That's all.
Right. But I
No,
think you're absolutely right, because watching the trial and looking at the black people on the jury, I think they were with us the whole time.
And
but Charles, with that extra little, I know what Gerald said, but where would you put that little twist that I added to this?
I was actually thinking something quite the same. I wasn't necessarily thinking Trump. I was thinking about uh, I was I was thinking about the cumulative effect of of the battles. St. Louis has been ground zero in this space,
But
and so,
I don't think that impacts the average
but
white
I think
person.
it's all of it. So I wasn't thinking Trump, but I think that you put that in there too. So I think it's all of those things together. I think it was, you know, Mike Brown. I think it was, your previous case that you were talking about, Gerald. Um, fact that these jokers have killed somebody else and this current circumstance and, and Trump. I think it's all of it. I think all of that stuff kind of, impacted that moment. And, you made it do what it do. Plus, I mean,
And another point, Dr. Alexander, is that we didn't get an opportunity to talk about who else they had killed until the punitive stage.
mm-hmm.
So just in education for the audience to know, you don't get an opportunity to go into that part of it until they've been found guilty of the first part. And then when we start talking about punitive, that's how we get to punitive, when we start talking about past behavior and other things they have done, why we need a large punitive judgment so that we can send a message to them to refrain from this type of behavior.
Well, I want to tell you, just as a citizen and an attorney, the work that you did is it's inspirational. It is groundbreaking, and it's right in line with the work that was started, long before we got here. But this lines up with everything that we hold dear, with from starting from the Colored Convention on forward. This is in alignment. This is what it looks like. And I just want to thank you for your commitment, as I know the stress that's related to this. You had to take on the whole aperture of the of that young client and the family and the whole thing. So it's
Against the very foundation of white supremacy, the
again,
white supremacist militia.
that is
This
correct.
this is who you
But I
fight.
think Mike is right on point when he says that, you know, before Brown v. Board, we could say to black kids what we needed to say publicly in schools to prepare them for the world. And educators cannot do that now with black students. And that
So
is that's
let's
a
also
major
add
problem. We
that
can move to Saturday schools, if we can get, but we're at a point now we can't get the parents to want the kids to hear this type of conversation and
we're
language that you were able to give to them before Brown v. Board.
it wasn't happening like that, brother. We can keep
It was.
romanticizing.
I'm
It
not,
wasn't.
Dr. Alexander. This is what I'm saying. My parents
We
were
can,
raised in rural Alabama. They weren't raised in
and
St. Louis.
I'm saying to you that we're overstating what that thing looked like. It wasn't that, brother. It wasn't.
Wait a minute.
I'm not
If
saying it
it
was
if it
all
if it
straight.
if
I'm
it
not saying
if
it
it
was all straight structure, Dr. Alexander.
and
But what I'm
so
saying is that you had a safe place where you could really talk to black children about what it meant to be black, what they had to do to survive, and you could have those conversations. If a teacher or a counselor attempts to have that conversation with a black kid now, they will be terminated or either they will be reprimanded.
okay.
And
So again,
Charles,
so first of all, it's only 8%. So what the issue is that it's only we make up 8% of teachers K through 12. That's what the problem is. And black men make
But
up
that's
2%.
also a result of
And
Brown v.
so
Board.
and so it don't matter. What the whole piece is that the shit has been shitty. It ain't just get shitty. And we need to quit saying that it just got
wait.
shitty because it
Oh,
ain't
I'm not
true.
saying it. I never said it's never been a
And it
problem.
wasn't
I'm
great
just saying
before
our
Brown.
ability to address it without
Right.
repercussions or losing
And
your
if we
occupation.
and again, if we were if this thing was operating the way that we keep romanticizing, we would not have E. Franklin Frazier's Black Bourgeoisie. We would not be talking still about Carter G. Woodson's miseducation of the Negro, because this shit has been bad, and it's
Wait,
bad because we're
Charles,
here. Period.
Charles, I would agree with you on that. And here is the other argument I'm gonna make that oversteps my credentials. Uh, uh, uh,
First of all, unless you're talking about brain neural surgery or some foolishness
Larry,
like that. Go ahead on, Mike Jones. But go ahead,
Okay.
sir.
Okay. Wait a minute, Larry. I do that like a good lawyer does. I'm gonna say it so he can't say it. Okay.
Right. Put it
Absolutely.
out there first.
I love
Yeah,
it.
put
I
it.
love it.
Yeah, put
Yeah,
it.
he
Put it
gonna
out.
disarm it. You gonna disarm it.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Disarm it.
Cause we've already addressed my credentials now. Okay.
Right.
Right, right.
And here's why I said that. They're fundamentally to survive in America as black people, we literally could say there are two archetypes, and you can tell them about John, okay? And one archetype is Django, that's the four of us, but the other archetype is Stephen. Now, they both were products of the same thing. What did it take to physically survive? That's all it was. One was resistance, the other was accommodation, and people were making decisions about what they thought they needed to do in those moments to survive. And after a while, that behavior gets imprinted. Am I right, Dr. Alexander? Okay.
this is true.
And it's subconscious behavior. It ain't even, you ain't thinking, am I Django or am I Steven? You become Django or Steven over time, and you inherit that, and it's passed on. Now, in Jim Crow and slavery, Django and Steven could probably coexist because the ecosystem of the environment was so toxic, so violent that you had to do whatever you had to do. But that Stephen imprint that stays with us when we move past Jim Crow into this post civil rights era where our oppression looks different. It's more neo-colonial than colonial. Then the Stephen prototype really diminishes our ability to become more sophisticated in it. So all them people Charles is talking about are right. They've always been here, and I don't know how you undo it. Maybe you, Charles, maybe you can address. I don't know how you undo archetypes. Okay, that psychological generational imprinting. So, but that's what we're dealing with, and because we don't understand it as that, our strategies don't work. And so that point, Charles is right. It ain't never been good. It's been this or that, and the fact that we don't think we need Django because we ain't that kind of brother no more. We ain't burning up the and remember Django shot Steve. I mean, yeah, he
Stephen.
blew him.
He
Yeah, he
killed
blew him.
Stephen.
Yeah, he kills. You know what? And
He
metaphorically,
left
that
him
was the
for he
point.
left him for dead with
Yeah,
the house
yeah,
blew. He left.
yeah. But if you think about it, Charles, that's a psychological that's a message in that movie. It's Fanon saying that you have to kill the slave too, the
Yep.
slave
Mm-hmm.
in you. Okay, that
The slave in
but
you.
the slave in you. That's what that was. Told them sisters get the hell out of here, popped him, and then he left. Okay, so that means there ain't but one archetype left at the end of the movie. That's Django. Everybody else been taken care of one way or the other, permanently one way or the other. It's our lack of sophistication at the intellectual level when we talk about shit, because we talk about shit like we in the barbershop all the time. And the barbershop could be high level epistemological conversation, but we don't think through our stuff seriously enough to try to figure out why we behave certain ways and how much of it is is conscious and then how much of it is just cultural and subconscious and how do you affect all of that. So uh at that level we are Americans. That means we're intellectually uncurious and really sloppy, half-ass thinkers. That's what this country is. This is the most ass backwards advanced country on the planet, and probably in the history. Literally, if you want to know how superficial, shallow, and intellectually vapid America is, all you got to do is look at the White House. There's literally no country other than a dictator with an army taking over. There is no advanced country that would ever consciously elect a man like Donald Trump.
And if
And
you
I'm
could
not
comment
talking.
on that real quick, Mike, I hate to change the subject, but
Yeah.
you have more information and more experience on war than we have. Now, I do remember when I turned 18, I had to register for the draft, but with never any thought that I'd ever have to go to war, and
Right.
never have had to in my lifetime. But I'm looking at the current situation that's developing. I saw the recent information where the age has been up to 44, and there's been a waiver of any marijuana issues. And so I'm wondering, what does that mean, or what is being forecast to us that maybe we're not picking up on?
Well, I think he needs volunteers. So he needs every half-ass mentally broke down white boy that can pass the physical. He would like to have them be able to put them in the army and stuff. And it ain't just him. It's the folks behind them. Uh, you'll never get a draft in America because what ended the Vietnam War was when middle class white boys had to go. Okay,
Okay.
that the whole anti-war movement was, as long as it was poor white boys and brothers getting their ass shot off in Vietnam. Everybody wasn't for the war, but when you saw people in the streets, the ROTC buildings in Washington, you were getting burned up. Them was middle and upper middle class white kids. Okay, now, but to show you how uh, how deep this runs, everybody in America is shocked at what happened in Minneapolis, right? The woman and the nurse, right? Well, that's just really Kent State in 1970 moved forward. And I remember my thought when the National Guard on a damn near all white campus fired into a crowd and killed four white students. And I said, damn, they're shooting white folks now. Okay, I mean, that was the time. So people now, if you born in the last 40 years, 50 years, you're shocked that the white ICE agents would murder in public two white folks. But in order to maintain this white supremacist part, white folks will kill white folks. Now, the blowback comes when, in order to maintain what they want, they have to start treating white folks like they treated us. And that's when the shit starts to hit the fan. So, what we ought to be doing, from our standpoint, is taking some gasoline to this fire and throwing it on them. And we ought to let them have at it for a minute. Okay, that we need to get this to the point where those white folks who are now beginning to think about resistance can't do what Lincoln probably had to do after the Civil War because the North was broke, figure out how to reconcile with the South. Okay, that we need to get America to the point where white folks fundamentally like they were in 1850 to 1860. Now, there's two kinds of white folks here, and America can't accommodate but one kind. Now, after capitalism won the argument, then they made the cultural accommodation because it was never about us. It was always about them. And to me, That's how we ought to start to think about it. And then you can be more strategic and more tactical about what you execute or how you think about it. But
Do
that's
you
just
think
an
we're on the
opinion.
verge of a larger war?
No,
Okay.
I think you go fuck it all up. I mean, first of all, it takes men and money and industrial infrastructure to sustain a war. The reason the United States could pull off World War II is because it had the industrial infrastructure. Half the shit they shooting, they buy from other places, or they buy the parts from other places. They ain't got. Matter of fact, in another 2 weeks, if Iran keeps this shit up, they gonna be out of shit to shoot at them. Okay, and matter of fact, the Russians already winning because they stealing from the Ukraine to
Right,
use
right,
in Iran.
right.
And,
They are.
and, and yeah, okay. And here's the thing: all people, we had a tendency to be too much church folks and think we Americans, but all them people that didn't like Khomeini, they really pissed off at Trump now, okay? Because Khomeini they might have shot their brother, their cousin, but they didn't blow up their house, and there's a whole bunch of shit. So, and here's you got to think about it like this: what we call Iran was what Iran is now was the core of the Persian Empire. Iran, that place is 2,500 years old. These dumbass white folks in America got here 250 years ago, man. What the fuck are you talking about? China is 3,000 years old. Egypt is 3,000 years old. These motherfuckers just got here talking about the rest. They ain't a dynasty in any of them places. Fuck the United States, man. Get here. Come back and see me in 5 years, 500 years, and I'll tell you if you're any good or not. Shit, okay? It's some
And
cartoon shit.
But just a quick note, Dr. Alexander. Notice how Mike Jones is beginning to look like Jeremiah Wright in this. I love it. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that to Mike's point about um the US, running short and likely running short. That was actually kind of early into this thing. Uh I don't know. I was listening to I think I was listening to somebody on NPR, and um it may have been the BBC, and they were actually positing that thought that part of what we're looking at is we're watching um, Russia and China and Iran force the U.S. because the U.S. is goofy to use up all of this armament in the Ukraine and and uh, and this is wherever whatever Israel is doing, wherever Israel is being goofy, the United States gets pulled into that, and now is essentially fighting on two fronts, and it's not sustainable.
Wait a
And
minute. And Charles, I just want to say, do not be surprised in sometime in the near future that the People's Republic of China walk in to Taiwan and reclaim Taiwan as a province, which it always was.
mm-hmm.
Okay, Taiwan did not exist as a country until 1948 when Chiang Kai-shek. That's where he ran off to, and Mao couldn't get him because Mao didn't have a navy, and the United States had the Seventh Fleet, so they could sit out there. And just to show you the power of patience, the Chinese awaited turn. And the first thing Richard Nixon had to do when he wanted to try to develop relationships with China, he had to give up Taiwan as an independent country. The United States had to quit recognizing Taiwan. And basically, the Chinese ain't gonna have to fire a shot. Now I don't know what year it's gonna happen, and uh, an example when Hong Kong, which was a British quote colony, and the Chinese said, you're gonna have to leave, and the British say, we'll never leave. Uh, we'll be here if it takes the next 50 years. And the Chinese response was, well, if all you're gonna stay is 50 years, shit, we can wait. We can wait for that. He said, but I tell you what, why don't we do the deal like this? Why don't you say you're leaving in 50 years? And then that's the deal. And the motherfuckers who gonna have to leave, they didn't cut it, so they can blame it on you. And we can wait it. We 3,000 years old. 50 years ain't shit to us. Is
And
that
Z, yeah,
huh?
Z has already said that he's not even calling it a takeover. He's calling it a reunification.
That's what it is.
Yeah, he
But if
said
you
we're
know,
going to
it,
reunify this by 2027. And that's what he said.
okay, well that means look, you got wait a minute, and because look at the clown that white America chose to lead them. How could anybody take you serious if this is the motherfucker you picked?
And they are placating to him just like you're dealing with a petulant child. I'm going to buy you a toy if you act nice.
Well, he
Uh,
do. Wait a minute. He tearing up his own house. He ain't messing up none of that shit.
no, not at all. Not at
They
all.
like, but just like that petulant child, they like his ass gonna go to sleep at some point.
At
Yeah,
some
right.
point. At some point.
And then
Well,
also he's enriching his family.
oh, no question. I mean, the emolument clause has absolutely no teeth whatsoever at this point.
No teeth. No
No
teeth.
teeth. I mean, so
And
and
we don't have anybody with teeth that are in Congress
no,
that will address that issue.
yeah, well, not
Because they're all. This is a kleptocracy. That's
It
Right.
this
is.
what
whole.
it is.
That's the
Come
problem.
on,
They
man.
all are
Come on
part
now,
of it.
Doc. It's a
That's
kleptocracy.
Say
yes.
that
That's
again.
And here is the point. They ain't gangsters no more.
They are
Not
not.
no,
But
no,
because
not at all.
if they was gangsters, somebody would visit him and say, "Man, you fucking up the game." Okay, and that's our problem now. You fucking up the game.
No,
Okay, now
these are Halloween trick-or-treaters. That's
that's
all
all it is. That's all it is.
that's that's what these folks are. What are you
And
gonna give me
especially the
for Christmas?
representation we have coming out of Missouri.
Oh my God, that's a whole show. Well, listen, gentlemen, it is Palm Sunday, but I do want to say this before we get out of here. We memorialized we had a service to memorialize the life of a gentleman that I've known probably since I was in the fourth grade, Charles Chucky Wright, C
Yes,
C
yes.
C Sizzle,
See,
San Diego, was
your frat brother.
your frat brother Mike
Yeah.
the rest this week. And Dr. Alexander, you all crossed paths in Atlanta too, I'm sure, because he left TSU and came to Atlanta. He and Donald Gage were inseparable at some point, and he managed the Fat Tuesdays in
he
Atlanta.
was in the Fat Tuesday mix, huh? Okay,
Yes, sir.
Yes.
He was the one that hired Donald.
okay.
Uh,
Hmm.
so we there's another hole in our hearts that we will have to mitigate because
He and Minister Akbar both passed on the same day.
yeah, and it's these are losses that you just will never be
Hmm.
able to properly replace. They're just things you have to mitigate. So that truth, that lie, that myth that time heals all is, that's a myth, and we need to understand that, and we learn as we learn to deal with that. Anything else as you gentlemen, a closing point? And first, and again, Gerald. I am so proud and happy for you, man. That is just that is the best definition for me of love is kindness in action. And that is the true love for your community, what you just, what you did. So gentlemen, close us out.
And I agree that that is the front line.
Uh,
Thank you again for your service.
Yeah, let me ditto Charles's comment, and saluting you will be how we ought to close.
Well, I thank you because really, I stand on all your shoulders. You just don't know the impact all three of you all have on me, and so I really appreciate it because it gives you the strength to keep on battling these issues and the intellectual intelligence to deal with these individuals out here. And Larry, I'm so glad that you brought up Chucky too, because I forgot to bring him up. Chucky was 79 class ahead of me. I graduated in 81, and you know how you looked up to those people who were in those classes ahead of you. And, Chucky was always welcoming to you and was always the life of the party. And he will definitely be missed and cannot be replaced.
He cannot. He cannot. Well, we want
Mhm.
to thank you all for tuning in today, and we hope that you all have a great Palm Sunday and weekend. And if it's the Lord's will, we shall see you all soon. Have a great week, folks.